The tape, let's grind. Shut up. The tape. Let's grind. The tape. We do it a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape. Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
The tape.
UGA game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach, and the bench deep. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunkered down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Found guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't come to play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do it a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The
Shut up
tape.
and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the film
Frozen.
It did it to us, didn't it?
It did it to us. That damn tweet.
It's the damn tweet. Hold on. Let's try to. What does Jay Will do on this? Doesn't he? I thought he deletes the. Watch out. I thought he deletes the camera and adds it back. That's what I thought he always did. All right. So hold on. Let's trash this. Now let's add a video source. Add a new source instead. Video capture device. Blackmagic design. I want to choose that one.
I think we're in right now.
Woo! Fixed it!
Hell
Who needs Jay Will? Not me! I think we're good. So we do need Jay Will, and this is a bad time to do this. We got a loaded show for you guys. We got an Orange Bowl preview. Which 4 coaches need to win the most? SEC portal number check. We're going to go through the rosters and see who all's had some mass departures and why. We're going to take a close look at those. What's more surprising? We'll play a game with Kirby today. He's going to give me surprising scenarios, and we'll play a game of which one. Dream scenario, worst scenario for the rest of the college football playoff we got remaining. Bad time for this joke, but I'm going to ask it because we obviously see that the man is important. So, Kirby, quick question, because I don't read the bylines in your contract despite the fact that I wrote them. In your contract, how many days do you consecutively get PTO?
Dude, I didn't even know I had a contract.
You didn't read it?
Did I sign one? Oh, dude, this is news to me. I need to get on the phone with my lawyer. But I would assume it's probably like 17.
It's certainly not unlimited.
No. But hey, man, it's vacation time with the fam.
I think whatever the line is, I think we're reaching close to it. Like, if he's not back in the States by like Thursday, I think we got some questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean Thursday will be fun too because are we doing the live reaction?
Oh, we're gonna do the watch along party and all that good stuff. I'm just saying I don't require his presence this week, but if he's not at least stateside by Thursday, we got problems. Is that fair?
Hey, you're the boss, man. I just do this.
I was just wondering what your contract said because I couldn't quite remember it.
I don't remember either. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
I don't think I've ever made you guys sign a contract. Maybe we need to.
That'd be pretty cool.
Shout out to Jay Will. He was the very first one in the chat tonight.
He was.
So he's grinding. Wherever he's at, Denmark, somewhere over there across the pond, he's hanging out. He was in Denmark a couple days ago. Have you been watching international takes on his Twitter feed? I haven't checked in the last couple days.
I saw him talking about the sidewalk thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was a long time ago. That was like a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of them extended vacations for the man Jay Will. Anyways, 1 a.m. wherever he's at, he's tuned in. He's locked the F in, as you guys should be here on this network. Like I said, we got a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to start with SEC portal numbers, but I want to knock out the business first and foremost. If you're not already subscribed to the network and you're watching this live show, thank the Lord for the algorithm that they put us in front of you today. We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to earn that subscription from you. If you're not already subscribed, please feel free to do so. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button in the chat, firing off in the chat over there as well. And I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at BetUS. All you got to do is drag Black Magic all the way down. I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at BetUS. If you have not checked out BetUS already, you need to head over there and do so. Use promo code YouTube150. You'll get a 100% deposit match over there with those, or 150% deposit match up to $2,000 over there on your first time deposit, and 120% deposit match on your next 2 deposits over there on BetUS. Again, that promo code is YouTube150 over there with BetUS. Kirby, I want to talk about these portal numbers, and I want to get up and go to that board right there. So let's see if the cameras work today, because the stream definitely didn't to start. But the cameras have never failed. That's your job, and you locked in over there. Jonathan's the one taking vacation left and right.
Hey man, we do it.
Let's go over to the board. All right, so this tweet and this edit comes via a friend of the show, Chris Marler. I believe he goes by @VernFunquist. Now he's Vern Dumquist. One thing you learn about Marler over these years, Twitter accounts be getting canceled. But anyways, here we are. He did a good job on this graphic. He did a good job running these numbers down. So we're going to use them from him. Thank you, Marler, for this. All right, so 31 players entered the portal as of Monday from Arkansas, 27 from Oklahoma, 26 from Mississippi State, 24 from Alabama, 23 Texas A&M, 23 Kentucky, 19 Auburn, 18 Tennessee, 18 LSU, 17 from both Florida and Ole Miss, 15 from Vandy, 14 from both Missouri and South Carolina, 11 from Georgia, 9 from Texas. It should be noted, Texas football players still have an opportunity 5 days after the conclusion of their season to enter the portal. So guys that are, 2s and 3s right now that are needed in the depth chart and maybe encouraged to stay on the roster still have an opportunity to enter the portal at the conclusion of their season. Kirby, when you first look at this, what is the first thing that sticks out? What's something that you want to talk about?
This is really the homer in me, but it is fair. I mean, people were talking about how Georgia's going to have 35 players into the portal, and it's not looking like. I mean, as
of now, I think this has moved up to 12 because Damon Wilson isn't included in this graphic. So they moved up to 12. This was as of Monday.
But still, they're closed.
Damon entered today. My days are mixed.
The portal window is closed for Georgia now.
Correct. It is officially closed now, I believe.
That's a relatively uneventful portal window for Georgia. That's
correct.
Not bad news. Arkansas also is like, the hell happened there?
Yeah. So obviously that's a lot of players in that Arkansas room getting up out of there. I didn't go through bar for bar, player for player, what's going on at Arkansas. I do believe though that they retained the freshman running back, the big boy that entered the portal. I think they got him back, so I think that's good news for those guys. I think they have wholesale changes though that they got to make out there all over the roster. But I went through some of these schools player for player and actually did some research onto this. Right, when you look at 31 players from Arkansas, you assume 12 to 20 of those players are probably meaningful guys that they lost and they're like, damn, that was unfortunate for us. But when you look at some of these other teams like Oklahoma, you see 27 players out there and you take a gasp. You're like, that's a lot of football players. But when you really go through this, Kirby, I went through some names here that I think if you're an Oklahoma fan watching this today, you're like, you're right, Brooks. That's a loss on our roster. That was a player that we were depending upon. Guys like Nick Anderson, A wide receiver who, yes, was banged up as a true sophomore this year, but as a freshman showed everything that you want from a young, talented football player in terms of a 6'4", 205 X body type. He ends up at LSU. He didn't transfer to Kansas, guys. He ended up at LSU. This is a big-time football player, and everyone believes him to be so. Bauer Sharp is another football player that played meaningful snaps for them, transferred to LSU. They lost 3 running backs in this room. That sounds like a lot. Don't think any 3 of them got meaningful snaps. They liked the running back room coming back. Kanai Walker was a starting defensive back for them. Maybe if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're like, okay, this was a football player that kind of tend to get beat every once in a while, but was indeed a starter for them and had additional years of eligibility. Same circumstance for a guy like Jalil Farouk. Do you think an Oklahoma fan today is like really crying that Jalil Farouk has left this roster, even though he played meaningful snaps last year?
Probably not, no.
The whole wide receiver core is getting flipped over at Oklahoma, and I think they're okay with that, to be honest with you. And then Dasan McCullough, number 1, the linebacker, transferred out, and that was a very promising football player. But that's what, 6-7 names out of 27 guys. I think this was a lot of pillaging the roster, getting rid of some of the guys that were dead weight on the roster out there in Norman.
And yeah, there's a lot of explainable ones, and they're that way for every single one on the roster. But when you look at it and you go like 27, that's almost a fourth of your roster. Like that's a lot of buys that you have to replace at the very least, even if it's players you're okay with leaving. So
it's not even almost a fourth of your roster. It's a third of your scholarships. It's 32% of your scholarships, 30% of your scholarships. I also think when everyone around the SEC, not in the Alabama state lines and not wearing blue and orange, is out here rooting and praying for the downfall of Alabama because you watched them dominate the sport for 15 years. 16, 17 years, however long the run was. You look at this, you see 24 names, and you're like, we got it. Bama's down bad, right? That's the first initial reaction. Guys, I went through this. I feel like for every, what I would deem a good, promising football player, I think they went out and added a good, promising football player. And the the good thing about what Alabama's doing right now in the portal, in my opinion, they're not just taking good, impactful football players. They're taking guys with multiple years left on their timeline, right? Let's go through this. I think Caleb Odom was going to be a good football player for them. I think everything I read and heard and talked to about the spring evaluation period as a true freshman up there, he had a good year. They didn't get, or good spring. They didn't get him a lot of run and a lot of burn this year at wide receiver. I don't know how Alabama fans feel about Kendrick Law. I thought Kendrick Law put good tape on this year. I thought Kendrick Law, when healthy, was a physical force for them and was a weapon in the screen game for them, which is important when DeBoer gets back to playing real quarterback, not let's see how many times we can run Jalen Milroe today. That real offense that he likes to run and that was ran at Washington, that type of weapon is very, very important for that offense. I think that's a loss. I think Dylan Lonergan is a good football player, but Ty Simpson is more ready to play for them. It makes sense. So I don't discredit or look at Alabama and say, ooh, this is bad news for you guys. Dylan Lonergan's a starter in Power 4 football. Y'all knew that. I think Alabama felt that way, but they feel that way about Ty Simpson, and this is the way of the life of college football nowadays at that position. I think Alabama fans to a man will look at the Justice Haynes run in Alabama and think what could have been. Do you agree? Even if you think it's a developmental thing on him, or if you think he didn't maximize, whatever, you're going to look at that 18 months of Justice Haynes and go, ooh, we didn't get everything we should have out of that.
No, and especially if he goes at Michigan and really, really has a good season.
Correct.
That you'll definitely have that. And that's just transfer portal remorse from any single fan base. But
the nickel, Devontae Smith, you watch a lot of film around here. What did you think of the nickel, Devontae Smith? Because I thought he was a good football player this year for Alabama.
I thought he was a serviceable SEC starter.
Correct.
I don't think he was all SEC. I don't think he was all American.
Anytime we're losing serviceable starters, right? Well, you could say the same thing about a Damon Wilson loss for Georgia. No one's thinking right now that guy's an All-American. Maybe he might be of one at his next stop, or maybe this is coming up near at Georgia. But you didn't lose like a bona fide first rounder right now. You lost a serviceable starter.
Yeah, no, it always hurts when a guy that has some eligibility left leaves, because then you watch him start because you know the product he is. Like if it was this guy's terrible, that's the reason he left, you'd feel a lot better about it. But the fact is that he started and put good serviceable football on tape. So
you watch a true freshman like Amari Jefferson enter the portal and end up at Tennessee immediately, and the outside fan might look at that and go, ooh, that's a big miss for Alabama. I don't necessarily believe so. I think you look at what Ryan Williams is doing right now if you're Amari Jefferson, and you think you got to probably hit the road as well. I mean, it just makes sense for him. So, but every one of those types of football players, right, they added a running back from Louisiana Lafayette. They added an offensive tackle from Ball State with 3 years left. I don't know about the linebacker from Colorado because I don't know much about defensive players from Colorado not named Sanders and Travis Hunter. You don't either watching this at home right now. I don't believe so unless you're out here grinding the Buffalo tape. Isaiah Horton, a wide receiver from Miami, super talented football player. We'll see what they can do for him. Cam Dewberry, a serviceable starter in the SEC coming from Texas A&M. I like the addition there. They added a corner from Utah with 3 years left of eligibility, and you know how I feel on this channel about Kelby Collins. I think they added just as much as they lost outside of just getting rid of people on the roster like Jaheim Otis. Other thoughts, Kirby?
Again, I think that the numbers are probably the more alarming part. When you get up into the 20s, that's where it's really like, hey, what's going on here? How do people feel about this? The culture, the coach we have, and especially with what happened with Kalen DeBoer this season. We know that the 2024 finished really, really disappointingly for them. There were some questions about how do people buy into Kalen DeBoer, and the fact that they're the fourth highest in transfers right now is probably the alarming part. But again, it's one of these things where you can kind of explain away most.
Look, if 20 of the 24 players that have entered the portal from Alabama were meaningful snap takers, I would be out here raising red flags. Most of this, I would say half of this to 3/4 of this, is him getting rid of guys that are dead weight on the roster, like we see all of these guys doing, okay? All of these guys are pillaging the village and getting rid of the roster weight that they aren't using, right? We are in a salary sport. If you are drawing salary and not making plays, you need to get gone, period, point blank. I have some other notes on here, Kirby. Ole Miss only having 17 guys leave. I don't feel like right now Ole Miss is leading the headlines in the portal acquisition period of the timetable of this calendar. We're going to have a relatively quiet offseason for Lane Kiffin out there in Oxford. I think this is also it's two-pronged. I think maybe they're just comfortable with the roster, leaning more on high school recruiting. They certainly recruited better this class than they have in years prior. But I also think we're looking at maybe the portal's not that great. Also looking at maybe you're not going to get as much money from your boosters as you got last year because you went 9-3, my man.
Yeah, I mean the disappointing season. We did talk about, like, at the very least, Ole Miss have to make the playoff, and they were in prime position to do so. They beat Georgia. They had 2 losses. They were in the top 12. Had that fumble against Florida, and you're probably not going to get as much money there. But also, like, we've kind of heard this universal talk this year of the market isn't that great. Mm-mm. Like, there wasn't as many splashes this year, I felt like, where it was like, oh my God, whoever gets that guy is getting a bona fide star. There's a lot of serviceable players, but it wasn't like years past where it's like, oh, he hit the portal, that's going to be a game changer for whoever gets him.
I mean, it was Nick Singleton and Zachariah Branch and what else at the weaponry department? Who was the best running back in the portal this class? Who's the best quarterback? And it was just not that good of a portal cycle. And I think part of the reason being, Kirby, is I think most of these big, heavy spending staffs and rosters, I think most of them spent their offseason trying to retain their roster, not necessarily trying to add to their roster. Whereas last year we saw a plethora of really, really good football players enter the portal and make moves. So anything else you want to talk about here, Kirby?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll be interested to see what those Texas numbers jump up to.
I think this 14 number from South Carolina is pretty important. Shane Beamer holding on to a roster that went 9-3 is very, very important, in my opinion, for what they've got going on in terms of a building period out there in Columbia.
Is that a good sign for you or a bad sign?
I think it's a good sign that you're retaining players. We're talking about a roster last year that lost their best weapon to Ole Miss because they thought they were going to be some buns out there in Columbia. Right, Juju Wells probably incorrectly leaves South Carolina last year because he doesn't think quarterback play is going to be very good, and goes to Ole Miss and struggles with the injury. I don't know if Juju Wells increased his draft stock this year. I would say, if anything, net neutral, maybe a loss. Oh, we're on fire.
You didn't even have to give a take while I was doing that.
I know. Kirby, I had some bad news today. Bad news, good news. Half full, half empty type situation. My accountant big leagued me.
Ooh.
Apparently, my accountant is done with small businesses like myself, and he is going to go into the corporate structure world of the nerd numbering. And that's unfortunate. I'm officially in need of a new accountant. The good news is, thank the Lord above for Rocket Money to help me at least budget these finances. We'll figure out taxes towards the end of the year, but praise the Lord for Rocket Money.
What is Rocket Money?
What is Rocket Money? Kirby, I am tremendously glad you asked. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon.
It's a good read, man.
Buddy, I was just about to say, we've done 2 a show for 100 shows this year, but that's the biggest home run hit I've had on a read all year. I barely stumbled.
Barely.
You'd have thought I never had taken multiple hits to the head back in my day.
Half the time it's, grab a crumpled piece of paper off the floor, read it off the desk, have to see where it is. And
you know what that is? That's that fresh partnership read and treatment.
Right.
That's what that is. We try to get good first impressions from Rocket Money. So make sure you're heading over there today. Shout out to those guys. Shout out to you for being here today. I ain't looked at the numbers, but I'm assuming they're pretty good today. Appreciate you for being here. I know you got other options and other places to be. Appreciate you for choosing us tonight. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and firing off in that chat. Anything funny going on in that chat tonight?
A lot of talks about the Ranger. My truck.
Oh, you got legend status prior to the show. I don't know what happened there. You went from bum to Slayer. Yeah, I don't Slayer in the Ranger.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Very interesting.
I think you should ride this wave a little bit more than the he's a bum wave.
Maybe.
It's amazing. It's amazing what happens when you show up for work.
I don't mind the bum wave though. I'm confident in the work I put out.
All right, Aubrey.
Oh, not the middle name.
Kirby, which one of these 4 football coaches has to win? Do you want my take first or your take first? Because we both cultivated one.
Well, I actually ranked him who has to win the most.
Oh, you ranked and I didn't?
I ranked him this
time.
Come
on.
So I've Marcus Freeman's at the bottom here.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman's season has been so good. They beat Georgia, for God's sakes. Like, when you beat a team like Georgia or the Alabamas or the Ohio States of the world, that puts you in such a hierarchy, especially when you're one of these teams that hasn't really done it. I mean, the stigma against Notre Dame has been they can never win the big games. They went out and won it against Georgia. Anything that Marcus Freeman does from here on out is just icing on top of the cake. He doesn't really have to win a national title this year. Next I have is Sark. Sark, this is his second playoff appearance. You made it to the SEC title game. You did all of this in your first year in a new conference. Like, you could say that Texas has met their expectations so far. I don't think they've overachieved, but no one would be disappointed if Texas lost to an Ohio State team that is very, very good this year. Wow. Number 2, I have James Franklin. James Franklin has always had the knock against him has been they can't win big games either. Well, they've won 2 in the playoff now. They're 1 game away from making it to the national title, but I still don't think that stink is kind of off of him yet. If they lose this game to a Notre Dame team where people say, finally they played a team with a pulse, unlike Boise State, unlike SMU, James Franklin folded as usual, right back to where he started. James Franklin would probably benefit. In the number 1, it's clear-cut Ryan Day. Like, Ryan Day came into this season like, hey, if Ohio State doesn't win the national title, Ryan Day might get fired. Then obviously they lost to Michigan. It was, do they move on from Ryan Day? Now we're back at square one where it's like, hey, this Ohio State team is so much better than everyone else, it looks like. If they don't win the national title, it's on Ryan Day. So Ryan Day, I think, is the number 1 guy who has to win a coach.
I just want to let everybody know, while we're sitting here talking about these 4 football coaches, we have a new stern, fast rule around here, and we defend it. No one, and I mean no one, especially you being the worst culprit of this, will be allowed to talk about Marcus Freeman's hairline.
Oh,
no one,
bro! He's won you over.
One.
It took a couple media availabilities and him beating Georgia, and now Brooks is the number 1 Marcus Freeman fan.
No one is allowed to talk about my man's hairline on this channel.
Wow!
Watch out!
Sold out.
That's dangerous territory.
Sold out.
Dangerous territory. If you saw that man in person, you'd sell your soul too.
I did see him in person. I was there with you. Very handsome man. Cannot deny that.
I think he's even underselling it. Very handsome man. Extremely. I need a different adjective on the front of that. Anyways, you went a ranking. I'm going to tell you the guy that I think has to win. And I don't think he has to win like win or go home type situation for this guy because no one expects him to win. But if this football coach wins, it's over with. I mean, he has a lifetime role at this football program, and it is James Franklin. James Franklin would forever shut people up, even his own fan base. If James Franklin won a title at Penn State, go ahead and give him the statue. Retire him now. Like, you're never firing that guy. Retire, never fire type of football coach immediately. Did you know that Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Texas have all fired football coaches who have won at the highest level possible?
That makes sense.
At Penn State, if you win a national title, they give you statues and just like, you gotta have something really bad happen for them to get rid of you. Like,
and then they take the statue away.
And then they take the statue away, and all hell breaks loose, and you tragically pass away like days after that.
Yeah.
But if you win a title, they immortalize you forever. So I think it's James Franklin. I think James Franklin's got the most to win. I think Ryan Day has the most to lose. I think Marcus Freeman's got that job at Notre Dame until he pulls an 8-5 2 years in a row. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So a young football coach understands that program, loves that program, it seems. Of course, he's an Ohio State guy. I understand they're played there. Maybe if Ryan Day flames out, maybe they pay him a king's ransom to go over there. But I think all three of these guys are pretty solid. James Franklin can solidify himself in that territory.
Here's a weird question.
Weird answer.
If Marcus Freeman consistently gets Notre Dame to where they are right now, and say that Final Four is the peak of Notre Dame football, and they get there every other year, are the NIUs and the Marshalls okay? Like, if he does that every year now, like...
I think if Marcus Freeman does that, NFL teams start calling.
Interesting.
Doesn't he seem like an NFL guy?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, if it happens a third time, it's almost unexplainable.
Oh, you're talking about the small school getting you home?
Yeah, like two of the worst losses in Notre Dame history happened under Marcus Freeman, and you could say that they're having their best season they've had in 25 years, or at least since 2012.
I think he's good. He's stamped there until he wants to go to either Ohio State or the NFL. I don't think you ever get rid of that guy. I think Sark's the same way. I think Texas fans saw what it looks like when you try to improve on Mac Brown. When you try to improve on 9-3 as your floor and 11-1 as your ceiling and putting together a good roster and winning a national title. If you're not okay with that, then you might end up with Tom Harmon and Charlie Strong back to back, and you don't want that. So I think Sark's, because of what happened in between Mac Brown and Sark, I think Texas fans are fresh enough off of that pain to know that, like, I'm not going to be out here signing up for the potential that Oklahoma is going to be the better team than us for a decade straight. I'm not cool with that.
No, absolutely not.
So I think some of these teams have been scared off from some of this stuff. And you know how I feel about Ohio State, though I am changing my opinions as of late because his offensive coordinator is doing such a great job. But I think anybody can win 10 games at Ohio State. With their budget, with their proximity to the Northeastern talent, and being the biggest dog up there in that whole Northeast corridor of the country, I think they should win 10 games every year. And if your coach isn't on the verge of winning a national title every year, that's when we ask questions. Yes,
but I think that's also if Michigan isn't a national title contender. But I mean, I don't think they're going to be that for a while, so you don't have to worry about that necessarily.
All right, Kirby, let's play a little game of what would you shock. What would shock you the most? We need a new name for this. I was thinking about this.
What would be more surprising?
This or that. Let's go with that. This or that. Perform it like that.
All right.
Which would be more surprising? This or that?
All right. What would be more surprising? Texas beats Ohio State by 2 scores, or Notre Dame versus Penn State is a shootout?
Well, I mean, we have seen Will Howard play like poop this year.
We have.
I have not seen a Notre Dame and Penn State football game against good defenses on both sides of the football put up more than 30 points. I would be stunned that this Notre Dame-Penn State game ends up in a shootout. Unless there's like multiple defensive turnovers that end up in short fields for offenses on both sides.
I mean, we have seen Penn State give up 40 to an Oregon. Now, granted, Oregon looked really, really good in that game, and I don't think Notre Dame is Oregon's offense at all, but it's capable.
Day is an elite recruiter. Ohio State is an elite recruiter. So let's be nice and clear and concise about that. And to confirm this again, Ohio State has not had, I think Ohio State has had 2 losing seasons since the conclusion of the Second World War. It's like 80 years of 9-win football, guys.
Machine.
All
right, what would be more surprising? Jeremiah Smith gets held to under 45 receiving yards against Texas, or Riley Leonard throws for 250 yards against Penn State.
If you would have went 300, I'd have gone Riley Leonard. It's more surprising. 250 can be done. 250's 2 explosives and managing the rest of the football game. So I'm going to go Jeremiah Smith. You said 45 yards?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
All right.
But, I mean, Jedi Barron.
What if I change it to
maybe
300?
Jedi.
I think it's Jedi.
Jedi? Jahdaa.
Or
Dae.
Jade. I don't know.
Jade? It was Jamal Adai when it was spelt that way. Jedi? I don't know.
It's interesting.
Jim Thorpe Award winner.
What if it
Good
was
football player.
What if it was 300 yards for Riley Leonard?
Yeah, I'd go that one. Okay. I'd be far more surprised that Riley went for 3 stacks over, a good performance from Texas's defensive back. 45 yards from Jeremiah Smith would be a phenomenal performance.
All right, here's another one. What would be more surprising? Quinn Ewers has a 4 interception game, or Drew Aller has a 5 touchdown game?
I thought you were going to go 4 interceptions or 4 touchdowns from Quinn.
That's crazy. No. 4 interceptions.
I would be more surprised by the 4 interceptions. At that point, Sark's just going to stop throwing the ball down the field. Apart from the Georgia game, and I don't have all of Quinn's, what has he thrown, 7 interceptions this year? 3 of them against Georgia?
Yeah, it's not a ton.
All right, so a few of the interceptions against Georgia were at, near, or like close to the line of scrimmage, but I would venture to say most of his interceptions are down the field.
I think all of his interceptions against Georgia came on hitches.
Well, yeah, like a 5-yard hitch and a 12 back down to 10, if you want to call that a curl, but
Comeback,
whatever, it was a comeback. Back towards the line of scrimmage, underneath 15 yards. But apart from that, I feel like most of Quinn's turnover-worthy throws are 30 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And if we throw 2 of those, we're probably not calling any more of those plays. You know what I'm saying?
Probably not.
I highly doubt Sark's going to watch his quarterback throw 4 interceptions. I highly doubt he's going to not pull him after the 3rd in a must-win football game when Arch Manning's sitting on the sidelines. I would be more surprised about the 4 interceptions than the 5 touchdowns. Beside, even though that blows my mind. Notre Dame giving up 5 passing touchdowns would be crazy work.
Now, I could see an avenue where Riley Leonard gets 5 total touchdowns because he is a rushing threat. But 5 passing touchdowns is a lot. All right, I've got one more for you.
Unmas.
What would be more surprising? Notre Dame wins the Natty or Penn State wins the Natty?
Penn State for me. I do believe Notre Dame can just out-execute everybody all the way there. Like, they were not at a significant talent disadvantage against Georgia, but they were at a talent disadvantage. If you went top 10 players on that field, 7 of them are probably coming off of the Georgia roster, and they dominated for 4 quarters because they out-executed for 4 quarters. Now, the problem with this theory is that Ohio State is executing at that rate right now with far better talent. So that concerns me. But it wouldn't surprise me if Notre Dame went out here and just was the better football team for 4 quarters for 2 more games.
So what would it take for Penn State to do that?
Aller for averaging 320 for the next 2 games, which is doable. It's very doable. The other thing is, like, of all the defenses that I've watched, I do think Penn State is like on par with talent levels as Ohio State and Notre Dame, or Ohio State and Texas. Like, they've got dudes. They just aren't as well coached as the rest of them, in my opinion. Maybe, and that sounds bad on the coaches, but like, maybe the players aren't as attentive as some of the other players, right? It could be the players too. It could not just be the coaches. Maybe the coaches are doing a great job.
Which one of those 2 teams would you want to see in the Natty? Or what would be your dream Natty scenario?
Are you transitioning me right now?
Well, when you say that, yeah, I mean, kind of
dream Natty?
Dream Natty scenario.
Dream Natty for me, dream Natty for ESPN.
Well, we know what the dream Natty for ESPN is.
Do we?
Well, here's the thing. They're all big brands. I don't think they care anymore.
I think there's a dream scenario.
Who's ESPN's dream Natty?
Texas Notre Dame. Texas Notre Dame is their dream scenario. We're okay with it is Ohio State, Notre Dame, because it's not like Ohio State's a bad brand. They're a big school. I believe they're the biggest public school in the country. Will you look this up for me? I think either UCF is the largest in terms of public enrollment, or it's Ohio State. But either way, they're right up there. So they're a massive program. They will draw an audience in the Northeast. I don't believe they pull the South, which means football. I don't think they pull the South as much as a Texas program would, but I think there is a worst case scenario. But go ahead. What do you got?
Arizona State is the largest public college in the United States.
Oh, that's one of them pulse colleges, huh?
Yeah.
You got a pulse, you get admitted.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Fun school, though.
Oh, I'm sure it's a real fun school. You know? But yeah, so probably Arizona State, UCF, Ohio State, maybe.
So Ohio State, so Texas
versus Notre Dame is the big. You'll pull down 18 million.
Okay.
Ohio State, Notre Dame. You'll pull down 15 million. Worst case scenario, ESPN's got to move some finances around because it's a dud. Ohio State, Penn State.
Yeah, I don't think
you pull a national number worth tweeting about between those.
No, I don't think anyone really wants to, especially since it's one you've had already.
Yeah.
People hate rematches. Mm-hmm. They hate it in 2011. They hate it in 2021 when Georgia and Alabama played again. People always complain about that for whatever reason. And it's kind of why people in the first place capered for having this playoff where, Alabama lost to LSU and those two teams didn't have to face each other again, and we finally had to see them in 2011. Like, stuff like that, I think is why people want the playoff, and it's kind of ironic that you have a chance that happens again. I think that Texas versus Penn State might have some shine to it because everyone kind of likes to see Ohio State fail. Like, people don't want to see Ohio State win a natty. Penn State's one of these teams where it's kind of a quote-unquote blue blood, but they haven't been there in 30 years. Like, they haven't exactly been national title contenders. In Texas, I think, just by default, you don't want to see Ohio State. And it's a similar vibes for Notre Dame. Like, people don't want to see Notre Dame win.
I think both you and I agreed. Them unis in person are a little bit different.
Ooh, I said that. I was talking to Ben Wolk. I was like,
unis.
We give Notre Dame's uniforms a lot of shit for being overrated. When they stepped onto the field, the chrome domes in the dome looked very nice.
Them's pretty.
Very nice.
Them's pretty.
Very good uniform matchup that game was.
I had a football coach back in the day, Coach Kenny Dallas, the sword man. Kenny Dallas used to talk about not looking at the chariots. Okay, when you were when you were a gladiator and you went into the Roman Colosseum, gladiators would get big eyes looking at the chariots of the opponent, right? The big horses and everything. They get amazed by the size of it, and then they're dead. Can't look at the chariots. When you play Notre Dame, especially when you go there, you can't be mystified by the history, right? And I don't know if Penn State will be, but yeah, you can't be over there looking at like, man, that's Notre Dame. You can't be looking at the chariots. You got to go out there and fight a war. A little cliche for you.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
You saying Georgia looked at the chariots?
When's the last time I whipped out my sword on this channel?
I hope you never do. Next segment, please.
Orange Bowl preview?
Let's do it.
Let's start with keys to the victory. What do you have right here? By the way, we'll do this. What's the other one? We'll do the Cotton Bowl preview and prediction tomorrow, and then we'll do a watch party together and watch the Orange Bowl on Thursday. What do you got for me for keys to the victory?
So the first one I have is, and this goes for both teams, for all of them, win the opportunity battle. Everyone says win the turnover battle, but turnovers are types of opportunities. I think that some point in this game, you're going to have a turnover, a punt return, and maybe someone makes an explosive play that provides you an opportunity for points. You have to score touchdowns on those opportunities. We both talked about how points are going to be at a premium in this game. Win your opportunities. The team that wins more opportunities is going to probably be victorious in this game simply because it's not the turnover battle. It's turning the turnovers into points.
So I broke this down, keys to the victory for Georgia, or keys to the victory for Notre Dame and keys to the victory for Penn State. Let's talk about Notre Dame first and foremost. If Notre Dame's going to win this game, it can't get into the 30s. I don't believe so. They have to play clean and summon explosives somehow, some way. You got to find a way to be explosive on the offensive side of the football. I don't need 7 or 8 of them. I need 1 or 2 of them, okay? But I also think, and this is where all of my anti-special teamer stuff comes back to haunt me because, I don't think it's very important. But in this football game and in the rest of them for Notre Dame, it is very important because you lack the explosivity on the offensive side of the football. So I think you need at least 1, probably 2, what I'm calling momentum plays. So whether it be a punt return, kick return, whether it's some type of special teams block or an ability to convert an extra down or an extra series because you did something tricky or multiple turnovers, whatever it is. They had 4 of these moments against Georgia. They won multiple times on 4th and 1, got Georgia off the field on a turnover on downs in their own end. They had a 4th and 1 that they got extended because of a trickeration with the special teams unit. They had a kick return for a touchdown. They had a fumble recovered in the own end of Georgia. They had 4 of these and won the game by 13. Okay, they've got to have several of these in this football game, in my opinion, because of what they lack in the explosive department on the offensive side of the football, especially with Jeremiah Love still relatively not 100%. For Penn State, man, you have to, and this is the key to beating Notre Dame, period, and this is what Georgia failed to do. You have to match their execution rate. I do think you have an ability to get away with some of this, right? You don't have to be as perfect as they are because you have the ability to be explosive on the offensive side of the football. I do think you have the more talented quarterback, and I think you have the best offensive player, Tyler Warren, and the best defensive player, Abdul Carter, on this football field. Having those advantages will allow you to have an execution rate a little bit lower than Notre Dame, but it can't be just wiping the floor with you like they did against Georgia. They will beat you in this football game. So, yeah, there we go.
I like that. I have a couple more keys, so I'll go and knock those out.
I got the keys.
Yeah, that.
Another one.
No, please no more. Don't stray away from your identity. I think the first team that goes, oh shit, we have to pass here, oh, we have to really try to score points, is going to be in deep trouble. But these are both teams that can throw the ball, would probably like to run it down your throat if they could. I feel like if either one of them feel like they have to start throwing the ball and really put the game in the quarterback's hands, you're probably not going to succeed too much. Now, Drew Aller is probably more capable of swimming in that type of situation, so I would say if it gets to that point, the matchup's going to favor them. But if you're Penn State and if you're Notre Dame, you're going to both try to run the football in this game. And the third one I have is have the most consistent QB play. Don't have to have, I mean, this is the game of game managers. Like, who manages the game best here, creates the least amount of turnovers, has the best, most accurate, doesn't have to have the most amazing throws, doesn't have to make highlight plays, just be consistent. Whoever has that's going to win the game.
For those asking about the sword, my head football coach in high school had the same pregame speech every single time, and it was him paraphrasing the story of Gideon in the Bible. If you don't know about the story of Gideon in the Bible, it's basically what 300 was written off of, and he has a big mega sword like that. The angel of the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Shout out to Coach Kenny Dallas. Shout out, he's at Trinity down in Sharpsburg now. Shout out to Kenny Dallas. His twin boys are a quarterback and a wide receiver at Georgia Southern this year. Josh Dallas, his son, had a really good year this year. So, sorry, went down a little tangent there. We did keys to the victory. What are the can't do's here, Curb? What can these teams not do in this matchup if they have a chance to win?
So I listed a couple of them out for teams. Notre Dame, you cannot get boxed in the passing game again. 88 yards is not going to cut it. Like, you had 88 passing yards and you beat Georgia by 13 points because of everything else that went right for you. Special teams, turnover battle. You can't assume it's going to be that way. Those are kind of happenstance things. Now, obviously, Georgia was a team that was going to provide you a lot of those opportunities. You can't expect that to happen again. You cannot get boxed in the passing game. For Penn State, you can't turn the ball over. And that's an obvious one, and we know that. But Notre Dame is one of the most advantageous teams when it comes to this. If you turn the ball over, Notre Dame almost always takes advantage of those opportunities and turns into points, whether it's 3 or 7. So, have to take care of the football. Another one for Penn State is you can't bust on defense. And this goes for Notre Dame as well, but more so Penn State, because we saw what happened in the Fiesta Bowl, I believe it was, against Boise State. Busted play made that a one-score game, and for a while, Boise State had life because of
Tight end leak,
yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, like, stuff like that cannot happen if you're Penn State because it gives teams life. And if you're a defense that's going to be predicated on suffocating an offense and you let that one play happen, you can give an offense new life. So I don't think you can allow those types of busts. Notre Dame can't poorly fill run gaps. We saw Boise State do this.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It probably won't, but it can't. Because if it does, Penn State's going to be able to run the ball all night, set up a play action very well, and Drew Aller is going to have a lot of time to find his Tyler Warren and other weapons. So do not want that. Penn State cannot make too many mistakes. We saw them make mistakes against Boise State. Luckily, SMU made pretty much every single mistake for them. Didn't have to worry about that too much. But again, Notre Dame is a team that is going to take care of the football. They're going to take advantage of the mistakes that you make. Don't make them then. And then the last one I have is Notre Dame. You can't let Tyler Warren affect the game too much. And I mean that in You can't let Tyler Warren have 100 receiving yards or so off. You can't let Tyler Warren dictate what your defense is going to do too much. We saw it on the film where if you focus too much on Tyler Warren, something else is going to come open. It opens
too much for everybody else. But that's what great players do.
I think you have to at some point accept that Tyler Warren is going to do what Tyler Warren does in this game. You have to try to mitigate it, but don't let him affect your defense as a whole, because if that happens, the entire game plan opens up for Penn State. What did you just read?
Chat wildin'. Chat absolutely wildin'. Do we have the best chat on the internet? I believe so. Shout out to chat. Chat got dubs. Can't do's. Here we go. Penn State can't have multiple turnovers or consecutive short possessions. I think if you leave your defense on the field for 9 straight minutes, Notre Dame's going to look like a really, really good offense. They're going to lean on you, okay? So I think you have to avoid that. You can't have bad mistakes like we watched Drew Aller throw one of the best balls we've seen on tape all year. The very next play doesn't tie his feet to his eyes, throws a duck fart. It gets completed. They get back on the football, try to run a ball. He fumbles the mesh point. Like, you can't have those types of things against this Notre Dame football team. I think they're, what are they, a 1.5 point underdog in this football game right now? So you're gonna have to play clean. It's not like a overwhelming matchup for you guys. So for Penn State, I think those are the keys, or the can't do's right there. For Notre Dame, you hit the nail on the head. It is Tyler Warren, but more specifically, you can't allow Tyler Warren to flip the field on you. Okay, a 20-yard reception to start the possession. I know this sounds crazy. That's okay, but a 40-yarder when it's 3rd and 4, and now all of a sudden they're in the red zone, you can't have that happen to you multiple times in this football game. It's gonna automatically, almost, unless you turn Aller over, it's gonna almost automatically equate to points. And I think they do a really good job of not just designing opportunities for him to get the football, but designing explosive opportunities for this guy to get the football. So you have to avoid that in this football game.
I like it.
Who, apart from Jeremiah Smith, is Tyler Warren the most unanswerable problem in the playoff right now?
It seems that way.
Offensively.
Yeah.
I think so too. Defensively, it's probably Caleb Downs accounting for him. The unit as a whole for Notre Dame.
Abdul Carter
feels like this on situational pass rushing downs. Anthony Hill from Texas feels like this.
Yeah.
So there's some good football players left in this college football playoff. I know we talked a little bit about that last night. Kirby, if there is a blowout in this Orange Bowl, who has it?
So, first of all, I don't see a blowout happening. I think a blowout at best would be like 17 points, and that's if it's a 10-point game.
Like a 31-14 game?
Yeah, and someone scores late to extend it to that. I don't think we're going to see like, oh my God, they just killed them type blowout. Not a TCU Georgia type deal, not an Oregon Clemson in 2016, I believe it was. Nothing like that. I think that if there is a blowout, though, I think it'll be Notre Dame. Because Penn State has, and this is kind of the main key point I've had for the entire time. Penn State makes more mistakes than Notre Dame does.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame takes advantage of those mistakes. I mean, you are a fumble or two away from Notre Dame having a 14-point swing on you. And then at that point, you're playing catch up in an offensive system that you don't really want to do. You don't really want to have Drew Aller trying to get you out of a 14-point hole. You would much rather be able to just sit on the rock and play quote-unquote murder ball. So I think that's why Notre Dame's kind of got the avenue to win on a blowout, just because Penn State has shown they had the more propensity to have mistakes throughout the game, especially in playoff games.
Over under Penn State rushing yards in this game, 185.
I'm going to take the under on that.
Sack not included.
I think they get
sack not included.
Oh, over. I think they get close though with sack numbers. I think it'll be like a 160.
Yeah.
I think if you look at both offensive performances after this game, you'll say they were just good enough to win, but there's something, whether it was the turnover or a special teams touchdown or something happened, that's why this team won. I think you'll look at the offensive performance and be like, I don't see any really indication as to why.
Final prediction, I've got Notre Dame 24-21. And if it's 17-14, I wouldn't be shocked.
I've got Notre Dame 27-17. I think it's a 10-point game, but I think it's close.
You know what scares me?
I think that's Notre Dame's up 20-17 with 3 minutes left and have a death march.
You know what really scares me about this for Penn State?
What's that?
Watching James Franklin and that offensive coordinating staff make some goofy-ass short yardage decisions and play calls in that Boise State game. They tried to lose it, it felt like.
I think it's I don't think it's unfair to say that Penn State up to this point has had the easiest path.
No.
And I said that at the start of the year, like, hey, watch out. That could be a team that gets that. My point with that being is that they've had the easiest path, and they also haven't looked all that impressive. You had 2 pick sixes against SMU, and but other than that, it wasn't like, ooh, man, Penn State looks really, really good today. I mean, Boise State, you're able to kind of lean on them. They had an opportunity to come back in that game. You just were the more talented team throughout and ended up winning. Like, Penn State's path to where they are right now hasn't really been all that surprising, or not surprising, but all that impressive. Like, at least Notre Dame, what they did against Georgia, very impressive. Ohio State, we already know what that is. Texas, you struggled against Arizona State, had to go to overtime, but you handled Clemson at home. And guess what? You won a really, really scrappy overtime game. So props to Texas for that. Penn State's really been like, you guys haven't really been pushed that much.
Yeah. I want to address some things in the chat right here. A lot of people talking about how much they love this show. We love doing this show. Also, I see some comments about, sad college football season's about to end. I know the old cliche from Pate is that there is no off season. We embody that around here. We take Wednesdays off and that's it. But we go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday around here 8 to 10. We're going to pump out content. We're going to pump out film studies. There is no reason to be upset about not seeing our faces because you're going to see plenty of them. And I hope we see you guys loaded up in the chat. I also want to give a quick shout out to my man. I think it's JS Web Music in there. JS Web Music. All right. I've seen you in the chat tonight talking about how you make beats and you love this show and you are a very, very strong proponent of this show. And I'm going to make your day a little bit more. We are constantly, shout out to DJology and all the folks that do all of our, original sound and original music around here. But we're always looking for new tracks. We're always looking for new things to add up and spruce up this show. So if there is something that you feel like you can add to us, I'm going to tell you what it is right now. A lot of these everyday segments, every week segments, these staple segments in this network, we need audio for them. I think it would be an enhancement to this network to go through some of these segments with some soft background music going for us, especially for you podcast listeners. So I think there's definitely some things that we can add into. And the number one thing I've always said about this network from day one is that the audience has far more of an involvement in what we do, how we do, when we do than anywhere else. Because I think you guys are obviously very, very important to the growth and the success of this network. With that being said, we have a whole nother hour coming up right now, and it is our local hour. Some people say it's our best. Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You really like that? Let's shut up and grind some tape. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, for another hour here on the Film Guy Network. It's our local hour. We got a lot to talk about. I want to go ahead and handle some business here at the top. If you haven't already headed over to BetUS, please feel free to do so. Use our promo code YouTube150 for 150% deposit match up to $2,000 on your first time deposit, 125% deposit match on your next 2 deposits. Again, that's BetUS, promo code YouTube150. Damn, has Brooks slept this week? Yeah, we're actually handling business on the sleep end, actually. I think I've been a little bit more efficient this week than normal. It also helps that I'm not doing 90-minute film studies. They're 32-minute film studies. I think I've narrowed down some of the important clips on these playoff film studies. I think that's really helped the workload.
How many hours are you averaging a night?
During the season?
Yeah.
5 Monday through Friday, and then on the weekend, probably Friday night through Sunday morning, or Sunday night, probably a total of 12.
It's tough.
Yeah, but during the off season, we get our mind right. That's what we do. We get our mind and our body right. We start treating our body like a temple for 6 months, and then we ravage that bitch for 6. Okay. So that's what we do. That's what we do around here. I'm of the belief that the work shows. And we're going to give you some numbers at the end of this show. For you folks who only watch the national show, stick around because I got a massive thank you for you guys at the end of this one. But Kirby, there was a lot of roster things and roster changes to talk about on tonight's local hour.
I felt like it happened all at once, too.
That's a Kirby news dump, man. That's the Kirby Smart news dump. That's what that guy does to people like me. He's like, oh, y'all are clamoring for stories to write about? Here's 3 of them in a matter of 90 seconds. So today, while I'm trying to do show notes, I think what happened in a row? It was Trevor Etienne, or Dylan Bell announces he's coming back. Mm-hmm. Noah Thomas commits. Trevor Etienne announces he's coming back within 90 seconds.
Yeah. And I was just in the car on the way here, so I was like, shit, I can't help them. But luckily, we had a couple of those already prepped and ready to go.
Yeah, so we had some of these.
We were proactive.
Prepared. We were pre-active.
I think it's proactive.
Why isn't it pre? Why isn't it pre-active? I know it's proactive, but why isn't it pre? If we're doing prefixes and suffixes, pre is before.
Pre does come before.
Pro does not. What is the suffix or prefix of? I used to do STEM words in AP elementary school. I don't know these anymore. What is the pro prefix? Look this up. So real hammering point right here. It's important. But anyways, let's talk about some of these return additions. Let's talk about these first. Dylan Bell making a return to the University of Georgia. I think this is very important for him. Pro is current. Forward.
Forward activity, as in acted beforehand.
Makes sense. I like pre-active.
Do whatever.
If you're doing activity before that, you're
hey,
pre-active.
Man, your name's on the wall.
But you're being proactive.
Say whatever you want.
Should we redo this?
Do what with it?
Should we, I don't know. Get a new one. It's been up for 2 years. Should we go next year, complete new wall?
I don't know. I mean,
I'll call my boy Derek. He'll get us a new one in a minute.
I think
real quick. He'll come through 3 days, put up a new one.
I like the wall.
One of them does that. Well, maybe we don't remove the left side because it's got signatures on it.
Yeah.
And get rid of the right one. The left side's actually going to get a new signature really soon. So that'll be fun. By the way, when people come in, we get them to sign the wall. But anyways.
It will.
Yeah, we got a new one coming in soon. So that'll be fun.
Confirmed?
Soft verbal confirm. We haven't got a letter of intent just yet. Okay, it hadn't been faxed in, but I feel firm about this one. But anyways, Dylan Bell, talk about the return here. I think it's good that they've added everybody else in the mix here so Dylan can return back to what he is, which is a multifaceted wide receiver who we try to get the ball quickly, not a guy who we're asking to beat man coverage as a true X receiver.
Yeah, and I think that it's important that he becomes that this year. It felt like your hands kind of got tied at offense this year with the rah-rah. That was a powerful sneeze. Bless you. It felt like your hands kind of got tied with everything that happened with Ra Thomas and Colby Young and some injuries this year. Like, you had to kind of put Dylan Bell in a situation where he's probably not going to excel. I don't think he is a true X, like you said. He doesn't have the body type for it. He doesn't really have the separating routes. But what you saw in 2023 against, teams like Tennessee, I think that's the best example and the best version of what Dylan Bell can be. And he's fully capable of that. And he's fully capable of being a very effective piece on your offense. I know that he might have a sour taste in some fans' mouth right now with the year he had. Rightfully so, I understand that, but he is still a very, very viable threat on this offense.
If he doesn't have that catastrophic drop against Notre Dame, do you think all of it goes by the wayside and everyone just thinks about Arian the dropper? Because I do.
I think the casual fan base, yes.
Yeah, I don't think people, unless they have the advanced stats on it, which you can't Google. You got to have an advanced stat guy to find drops. They don't carry it in college football like they do in pro football. So you really got to find it. I only think there are a certain amount of certified ball knowers that watch this channel that know that Dylan was actually the most frequent dropper this year, not Arian. So I do think had it not been the one where it's like, damn, dude, you dropped that ball.
Yeah. And I think Aaron gets the flack because his drops were like, that was a touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that was a 50-yard gain that you just dropped. Like, Dylan Bell's were a lot more slants, hitches, where it's like, you can't have
quick
that.
Screens.
But it finally was the one touchdown that I dropped where it was like, oh, Dylan Bell sucks. So
yeah.
Is this a problem for your room now though?
The drops? No,
no.
The room cleaned out so fast.
No. The sheer numbers that you have there.
No, I think it's a good problem to have. more so than years prior.
So you don't think that Dylan Bell coming back is going to
clog things up?
Yeah.
No, because I think Dylan comes back knowing he's returning to what he did in 2023, not doing what we asked you to do in 2024. We can make you more into what you are in the NFL. We can enhance your draft status by asking you to do more what you do and less of what you don't naturally do. Chat points out a good point here. We had a number drop from the national hour to the local hour for the first time in the history of this channel, I think.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, chat did first. Someone said I'm old enough to remember the days when it was the inverse of that. Drastic.
I remember the days when we had
like 100.
When we flipped the two to kind of surprise people, like, it's the national hour. Welcome in.
We had like 100 people watching the national hour, and they tick up to like 300 during the local hour. And here we are in the off season, ticking down in the local hour. That's crazy.
I remember like the first week or so.
Probably because of the Hoop Dogs too. I think our number's down tonight because of that.
Probably.
Yeah. Shout out to the Hoop Dogs.
No, I was saying I remember the first like few weeks you did this, and I was like, holy shit, we got the triple digits tonight. Hell yeah.
I think my man Cody Wilson was the one who pointed that out. Shout out to Cody. All right, back to these additions. Trevor Etienne coming back is huge.
Massive.
For this room. Had Trevor Etienne not come back, you're looking at the start of next year, depending on where Roderick is with his turf toe surgery, you're looking at Nate Frazier, Cash Jones, and Roderick Robinson being your running back room to start the season. Now it's, hey, can we really, really feature Trevor and Nate for another season? A tremendous retention of Trevor Etienne. I also think that, he didn't have the year this year that I think everyone expected him to have because of all the things going on offensively that we'll talk about later tonight. But this is a big retention spot right here for Georgia.
It feels like Trevor Etienne coming back makes this offense just that much more dangerous. Like there is a true X factor at the running back position. Not that Nate Frazier isn't that. Nate Frazier is absolutely an X factor. But you have that 1-2 punch that made Georgia offenses so viable back when they were, the quote unquote Georgia offenses of old. And you've always needed a good 1-2 punch. Yeah. James Cook, Zamir White. You needed that with Kenny McIntosh and Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton. Like you had the kind of the 1-2-3 punch in 2022. So it's very good that you have two known names in the room still.
Start the morning off in the news cycle with an addition of Jaden Harris, the safety out of Miami. Started, I believe, every game this year for them and had 40 tackles, I think was the stat sheet. It's so funny to watch, and Georgia fans do this too. It's so funny to watch players enter the portal that are relatively serviceably good football players. The moment they enter the portal, their fan base that they're now leaving immediately thinks they suck. Like people, Trojan fans are saying this about Zachariah Branch. After thinking he had a chance to win a Heisman as a true freshman through 3 games, 12 months later, you think he's garbage and a terrible football player. It's just funny how that happens every single time. The ones walking out are always bad. But they add Jaden Harris this morning, a veteran football player who, by the way, fits one of the 3 criteria for Georgia football portal additions. This being a Georgia football player, I believe he comes from oh man, I had it before the show. Heritage. I believe he comes from Heritage High School down in Conyers, Georgia. And then, of course, this afternoon as well, they add Adrian Maddox to transfer out of UAB. Maddox, an interesting story. A relatively under-recruited high school player out of the state of Georgia. I believe he's from a school here in the state of Georgia as well. Goes to Alabama State out of high school, the real ASU.
The real ASU.
Goes to Alabama State out of high school. That coming from a fighting Kenny Dillingham fan is disrespectful as hell. Went to Alabama State out of high school and was nominated for the Jerry Rice Award. Do you know what the Jerry Rice Award is?
I mean, I would assume it's got something to do. The title itself would suggest wide receiver. I'm going to suggest it's a community service award.
Incorrect. The Jerry Rice Award is basically the Heisman for D1AA.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
For that mid-major tier of college football, that is where their Heisman is essentially given to. So Adrian Maddox was nominated for that out of Alabama State and then transfers to UAB, had a good year this year, and is now a University of Georgia Bulldog after having committed to the Florida Gators. So an interesting pull for Kirby Smart there.
It's interesting just all around because like 5 days ago you looked up and it was like, that safety room's kind of thin now that Malachi Starks seems to be leaving, and then you woke up today and it's like they're taking 3 in the portal. Like it shows you like how important they feel that they need bodies in there.
Riverwood.
And we talked about as well, like they've had a lot of exits. It's not just Malachi Starks. We went down the list earlier and talked about, there's a lot of people departing from that room this year.
Yeah, my bad. Jaden Harris is the one from Riverwood. Adrian Maddox is from Heritage. I'm an idiot. Lot of information having to be retained nowadays by a guy who played a little bit of football. I got notes on these additions, but I want to talk about some of these subtractions. Actually, let's do subtractions last. Yeah, let's do subtractions last. You obviously took 3 safeties, right? Zion Branch, Jaden Harris, Adrian Maddox. Kirby, I want to bring to light a conversation you and I had with sources on a blackjack table at Caesars. Now, I was losing, but it's okay. We were winning. We were winning in the long run.
That was honestly, that was a tough blackjack session to watch.
Tough sesh. Man was up a good grand. Not me. Man was up a good grand and was like, I gotta win one more hand so I can tip the dealer. And we watched a movie scene, him lose every dollar he had. Then right after he lost his soul, we hounded him for information on the Georgia football team. And we got it. We got the information. The information that we got as we watched Mans lose his soul at the Caesars blackjack table. Shout out to my mans. If he's watching tonight, I apologize. Anyways, what we learned was that they were not in love with any particular safety in this market. But what they knew was that they were going to have to take multiple stabs. This is exactly what they had to do. They had to go get a bunch of bodies.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to the sentiment that I feel like all of college football has about the transfer portal this year, where it's not like there's not really a, hey, go get them guy. Yeah. Like there's not a game changer at the position here. There's not a star-studded player at every single position where it's like, oh, there's a really good safety here and there's a good corner there and there's a starting quarterback for us. Like it's very slim pickings. Now, I think this might be like the new era of transfer portal now where there's not going to be as much poaching, especially with this rev share coming down the block. It seemed like one, team's kind of backed off because they don't know what they can and can't spend right now. And 2, I think players are just not getting developed as much because you have so much, well, I'm not starting here. Let me dip out.
Yeah.
So I do think that I understand why there's kind of this feeling of, they didn't love everything they have in front of them. They're still more than willing to take it, and they're still very, very good serviceable players. And, hey, they might turn into dudes. There's our J.R. Reed story for if you want, but you don't know right now.
My man Jeff in the chat says he only watches Brooks because he played for Shorter. Yeah, this is a common known fact about giving sports opinions. You can't give them unless you played. It's like the rule. Everybody knows that. So, yeah. I don't know why I had to do that.
Is that like sarcasm? Or?
Yeah, it is. Noah Thomas, because I played Division II football.
Yeah, I played in high school.
Who gives a shit? I basically played advanced high school football compared to what we watch on Saturdays. Noah Thomas, massive addition, both in size and what they need. I hope this one pans out, but this is the most promising X-edition they've had. Like Colby Young comes to Georgia and he looks pretty and he's got great tape that one game, but really had like 500 total yards coming out of Miami. This is a football player who had 750 in the SEC last year as an X receiver in this conference and is 6'6" and can go get it.
Yeah, this is the one where like, oh my God, things are coming together if you're Georgia's offense right now, because the one critical thing that we talked about all year for Georgia, and it especially got really, really reared its ugly head when Colby Young was suspended, obviously, but they didn't have a guy where it was like, okay, we need a 50-50 winner here. Let's just throw it up to them. Like they had to constantly design winners, and even sometimes like you were getting these important situations where you're throwing 50-50 balls to Dom Lovett, which let's be fair, that's not his game. Like, Don Lovett's a very, very solid wide receiver for you. I don't think you want him constantly having to win on 50-50 balls or a Lawson Lucky or someone like that, where it's like, that's not what these guys are here to do. We need someone who can do that for us. And Colby Young was that. He wasn't on the roster for the majority of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, since James Coley has been here, so he got signed to Georgia last February, right? He left South Carolina, came down to Georgia. Shane Beamer gets up there and says that he, got the better candidate.
Oh,
remember that one?
Yeah.
Like we hired this guy 3 weeks ago and he left our building, but we went and got somebody who's even better than this guy. Well, why didn't you get that guy first? Don't worry about that. Since James Coley has gotten to Georgia in a year's time span, C.J. Wiley, Taylor Taylor, Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas. That's a pretty good job. Landon Roldan, I think, ends up at Georgia no matter who the wide receivers coach is. Being from North Oconee, being a 3-star recruit, being a guy that they kind of Lad McConkey'd in the recruiting process, if you will. Kind of like, hey, we love you, but we're not going to let the world know that we love you until the end of this. And then we can let the world know that we love you because we already got you tied up kind of deal.
Can I sidetrack real quick?
Come on.
How do you feel as a recruit if someone says that to you?
As a recruit?
Yeah.
I go to North Oconee High School. My name's Landon Roldan, and Georgia loves me. I was going to Georgia if they ever offered me anyway.
But not specifically if you're Landon Roldan, because obviously Landon Roldan wanted to play for. If you're a recruit that's kind of up and coming, and a big school comes to you and says,
like
"Hey,
Kristen Miller in high school."
Sure. If just any school says, "Hey, we really really like you. We're going to take you." But we're going to keep it on the low. So you're not going to get other offers from other teams. You're not going to get fielded. You're not going to be able to experience like the recruiting process where, as we know, there's probably some money that's involved with that in general. How do you feel about that? Is that good? Is that exciting? Or is that kind of like, I would really like to test the waters?
Is it my dream school? Because Georgia only does this to in-state kids. That they know that this kid's been dying to play for the red and black for a long time. I'm going to do this. We're okay to do this to him. But no, I think there is it's all where you're at in the recruitment process. Like I don't think they did this to Ladd because they found Ladd in January playing hoops and then offered him. They knew about him, but like offered him late in January. Landon was a guy that they offered in midsummer, I believe, going into his senior year, and then and got him in the mix. But it was different for a kid like Kristen Miller, who Kristen Miller was committed to USC and didn't have a committable green lit offer from Georgia going into his senior year. And then in October, Trey Scott shows up and is like, hey, man, we really need you, buddy. Come to Georgia. That being said, come to Georgia knowing that it might take 2 years before you get on the field. Here we are 3 years later, and he was a very, very important player for you and is coming back for a 4th year. I don't know how I would feel, to be honest with you, Kirby. I would feel jaded if I were already a Power 4 recruit. I would feel like the happiest kid in the world, the most under the radar gem that has already been found, and I don't have to stress about it if my best offer is Middle Tennessee State and Georgia's keeping me under the wraps.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah, I just never really thought about that because, I mean, like, when one school says, hey, we're going to recruit you, but we're going to make sure you stay unknown at the same time, like, what does that do for your psyche as a 17-year-old kid? Facts.
Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. Let's talk about some of these subtractions, Kirby. Most notably, I don't know if we talked about it last night because I don't know when I can't remember. My days are blended. Damon Wilson is a massive loss. We did talk about this last night. We did not talk
about Fairchild, though. That hit this morning.
We didn't, but I want to keep talking about Damon because it's a very important talking point, right? What we didn't talk about last night is potential suitors and who you're fighting against right now. It doesn't take long to connect the dots. This was between Georgia and Ohio State coming out of high school. It's going to be Ohio State. A kid's going to be a Buckeye. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. That's unfortunate.
That's if he doesn't come back, or it's like
if he doesn't come back. I think I'm going 65-35. 65% chance he's a Buckeye. 35% chance Georgia retains him.
Dang.
Yeah. Good news. Quintavious Johnson, promising. Gabe Harris, cross-trained at that position. Elijah Gibson or Isaiah Gibson coming into the room. That makes you feel good.
I mean, like, that's luckily one of the rooms where it's like you can probably lose a few guys, and it'll probably honestly always be that way with Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann there. Like, you can kind of afford the ones. I mean, we've seen this before with Marvin Jones and who's the other one that Jermaine
Burton?
No.
Jermaine
Johnson. Like, it's happened before where it's like, oh, damn, we just lost a really solid edge. It's probably going to be a starter elsewhere. But we have 5 other guys that we can plug into this position. And that's not to say that Damon Wilson was expendable. He was a very, very, very good starter for Georgia's defense this year. But it's not like it's the end of the world for you, I don't think.
No. You mentioned Dylan Fairchild declaring for the NFL draft today. Jared Wilson accepted a Senior Bowl invite but has not tweeted out his graphic. It's beside the point.
If you accept a Senior Bowl invite, you are
9
going
times
to the
out of
NFL
7
draft.
Yeah, you're headed to the NFL draft. So that knocks out Dylan Fairchild and Jared Wilson for the 2025 depth chart. Last night we did the wide receiver look ahead at the depth chart for those guys with the impending additions You guys like that. You ask for us to do it with the offensive line. You ask, we do. So let's go to the board and just map this out. And it's going to look totally different than what we did last night with the wide receiver core, because I think this one's a whole hell of a lot more up for grabs, especially now with Jared and Dylan off to the NFL. All right, here we go. So I've broken this down into knowns and opportunities. Okay, Curb? So we're actually going to break out the Benjamin tonight.
The Benjamin?
The Benjamin. My kids came down here the other day, Kirby, and they like to doodle on the board. Okay, so we let them doodle on the board. They showed me something I had no idea about Epic Pen. Okay, check this out. Did you know that if you press this button, you get all kinds of different color options?
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I've been using Epic Pen for 5 years. I think we used Epic Pen when you were my original producer. We've been using Epic Pen for a long time. CTE brain. All right, let's get after it. Let's do it in blue. All right, so we're going to break this down, like I said, into knowns first and foremost. So let's talk about the knowns in this room right now. First and foremost, you have one offensive tackle that you know for a fact next year will be starting for you. That man is named Monroe Freely. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about him. I imagine you feel some type of way after the last performance. I'm sorry. I thought he played really, really good as a redshirt freshman this year at left tackle, a really hard thing to do, and immediately popped. As soon as he got onto the tape against Tennessee, I felt like he had a really, really good football game against an NFL football player. The other known that I think you know right now, okay, is an offensive guard position, Micah Morris. Now, you'll notice I don't have a left or right indicating right here. I don't know which one they're going to put at. If I had to imagine, both of these guys are on your left side tomorrow, starting in the spring. Okay. The other thing that I feel like you know right now, okay, and some people are going to feel some type of way about this because of the last name, but you didn't watch tape this year. He was really, really good when he got asked to play. Drew Bobo is a known right now at the center position. I think as of right now, January 7th, looking at the roster, we know Drew Bobo is going to be starting at center to start the spring. Now, those are the knowns. Now we go into the area where we're kind of looking for options, right? Let's look at the tackle options first and foremost. Okay, the offensive tackle options start and begin with a question mark. What is the status of Ernest Green? Is Ernest Green going to go to the league? Is Ernest Green coming back to Georgia? Is Ernest Green going to play offensive guard next year? There's a lot of questions about Ernest Green. Is Ernest Green healthy right now? Is Ernest Green going to get to play in spring? Is he going to have to go through some offseason surgeries? What is Ernest Green's status right now? Overall, he's our first question at offensive tackle. Right after that, you go to the big fella, Ja Jackson. Okay. Now, the reason Ja is here for me is because I ain't never seen somebody not play football from 8th grade to sophomore and freshman in college and then be a 2 against Clemson to start the season. Did you notice that? When they got into mop-up duty against the Clemson Tigers week 1, Ja Jackson ran out and played left tackle. That to me was kind of like an eye-opener, like a whoa. All right, we need to pay attention to Ja Jackson. By the way, I'm putting these in the order that I think they're going to end up, okay? At least to start the spring. I could be right. I could be wrong, but this is what my intel tells me about the depth chart currently. Right after that, we got to talk about a guy named Bo Hughley. Okay, Bo Hughley is an offensive tackle that was a top 100 prospect out of Langston Hughes. He is 6'7". He's got really long arms. Here's the problem about Bo. I don't think Bo's going to reach 300 pounds during his time at Georgia. Ooh. I don't know. And maybe he is because he's 6'7", but he seems thin, okay? And Georgia don't play thin normally. So Bo's got to put on weight. Bo's got to eat this offseason and put on some good muscle mass. And if he does so, I think he's got an opportunity to play. Now, a body that I know is a good-looking body that I don't know will ever, play at Georgia is Jamal Merriweather, the kid out of Brunswick, Georgia. If you look at this guy in pregame, he looks gorgeous, doesn't he, Kirby?
He does.
He looks like a ball player, okay? So I like him, but I don't know nothing about him. I ain't never seen him really play meaningful snaps, nor have you. We only see what we see. All right, right after that, I think you have to talk about whether or not Juan Gaston is ready to make an impactful portion or impactful, play on this roster. I think he's going to be really, really talented when he gets to Georgia. The big question mark for Juan and why he's here, weight loss. Can we get from 388 down to about 355 by the time spring comes around? That sounds like it's insane. Y'all don't remember what that 2024 class did with regards to losing weight. Those guys got it down and got it down quickly. After that, we're going to talk about some 2024 guys that were hurt this year. Marcus Harrison, the kid out of, he's up north. He's not out of Mass, is he? New Jersey?
I don't remember.
Somewhere up north. Marcus Harrison, he's a big monster as well. He's 6'7", maybe close to 6'8". Are people making fun of my handwriting yet? That's another question to be
calling it a shorter helmet handwriting.
Yeah, shorter helmet.
But I got to be honest, it's pretty good.
We got Nair Daniels down here. I'm going to be honest, down from this category, those are all interchangeable. That's all what you do this offseason, what kind of moves you make on the roster. Let's go over to the guard options, okay? OG. All right, let's talk about it. I think first and foremost, looking at a potential starter this next year, Daniel Calhoun. All right, Daniel Calhoun was a borderline 5-star offensive tackle prospect coming out of Walton High School by way of Centennial. Massive addition in that 2024 class, was the blue chipper that you felt like you had to have. Competed against Alabama and Tennessee. Competed against Alabama and Tennessee for that one, landed him. And Texas. You got to see if this is one that's going to be ready to play this year. He traveled with you guys this year. He was in the mix. I would imagine he practiced with what we call the varsity or the travel squad. He's got to be ready to play, I imagine, coming up this next year. They like Michael Unai. Are we going Uni or Unai here?
I think it's Unai.
I think it's Unai as well. You know me, I'm a big Nigerian bloodline guy. Michael Unai checking boxes. Michael Unai, fun story about Michael Unai. On his official visit.
Oh, I've heard this one.
Yep, most people, maybe some people watching tonight haven't heard this one. You'll love this one if you're a lunch pail folk. Michael Unai on his official visit, they couldn't find him at like 9:45, 10 o'clock on a Friday night. They're like, where is Michael Unai? We got to find this guy. Well, coach, he's like 6'6", 330 pounds. Can't be hard to find. So they go down into the hotel where the recruits are staying. They find their way into the workout facility. Michael Unai is on the treadmill getting a grind in at 10 o'clock at night on his official visit. That's the way to earn some brownie points with the coaching staff there, Michael Unai. Let's give me some Marcus Easley, but Marcus spelt with an R and a Q. Marcus Easley right here as a guard option. I thought he might be like a Broderick Jones type tackle, but I think he kicked into guard immediately once he got there to Georgia. This might be one of those swing players. Might be on both of these lists, so pay attention there, okay? On to the next guys. We're talking about young players, okay? Donnie Glover out of Langston Hughes, an absolute road grader and just a mean SOB. Liquor drinker, as we call him around here. And then Mason Short, I think, starts his career as a guard and then has an opportunity to maybe swing out to tackle like an Xavier Truss. Really clean eval right there. A lot of bodies. A lot of questions, right? Not a lot of playing time in this mix from anybody, right? You got an experienced football player here, a one-year starter here, some spot playing here, and some spot playing here, right? But we got a lot of questions going in here with a lot of talent. Certainly some other programs feel a little bit worse about their standings than Georgia, but a really good job. By the way, you know what you don't see on this list?
I don't see like a plug-and-play Xavier Truss type guy.
I don't see a swing player, all 5 positions, you're right. We didn't talk about centers. The other backup centers are Malachi Tolliver and Cortez Smith, the true freshman. Okay, but what you don't see on this list, in my opinion, is sophomores and juniors. No sophomores and juniors. Okay, sophomore, gonna be a junior. Sophomore, gonna be a junior. Sophomore, gonna be a junior. There's 3.
Is Merriweather or is he a senior?
Gonna be a senior, I think.
Okay.
But that y'all, we've talked about this on this network. That 21 and 22 class were just not good enough for Georgia standards, and you're seeing it right now. There's going to have to be some guys step up and play good football in 2025. No doubt. Is this are we going into a year where your offensive line seems like one on the offensive side of the football that's got the most questions?
Yeah, I mean,
first time, long time.
You lose 3 stars, and you combine that with the fact that overall, I'd say the unit had a disappointing year in 2024. Like, there's a lot of questions coming into it. So yeah,
900 racks to coach that room. Gonna make you money this year. Are we good here?
I would say we are.
This is gonna hurt my heart. See you. All right, I'll give you the cursor back. I think I did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, where are we at? We are loaded. That's where we are at. We are loaded. Oh, notes are upside down. All right. Kirby, what were the problems? Bless you. What were the problems in 2024 for the University of Georgia?
I mean, I think we all know that the biggest one was just overall consistency. The fact, not just consistency in games, consistency in drives, consistency in individual efforts. It felt like, you pointed it out perfectly, where Jared Wilson all game could play very, very solidly.
And the one time he F's up, so one time we got a streaker.
And the others around him were kind of questionable at times. And then Jared Wilson finally has a mess up, and it's the one time all four other guys were doing it. It felt that way all year. If the quarterback was making a bad read, the quarterback, if the wide receivers finally got open, the quarterback made a bad read. If the quarterback made a good throw, the wide receivers dropped it. Stuff like that all year. Just consistency down to a T was the biggest problem.
Like no complimentary football at all
whatsoever. And that's what made Georgia so iconically Georgia. Like, the fact is that they play good defense, they play good offense, and when they need to, they complement each other very, very well. You did not get that this year. It felt like there were two sides clashing constantly, or one side was trying to carry the other.
So I have 5 things.
I have another one after that.
Top 5 things I consistently saw on tape. These are all consistent problems. Number 5, poor attention to detail. Moments like Anthony Evans coming across the formation in motion, not realizing that the guy he's responsible for is actually playing football today. Bad hat and hand placement consistently on the offensive side of the football. Moments where we're jumping off sides, just not paying attention to the minor details that are required in football. Number 4, offensive linemen being snatched down on their face. All of them. Every single one of them, except for maybe Ernest, because he plays in his heels quite a bit and plays with good body lean all the time, because he has to, because he's not as gifted as some of these other guys physically. Whether it was Tate Ratliff, whether it was Dylan Fairchild to start football games, Xavier Truss has had this problem his entire career. Offensive linemen getting snatched down on their face and defensive linemen making plays. Way too consistent. Tight ends included. Number 3, up and down rush success. I felt like it was very week to week with the pass rush department. And I don't think it was bad at any point this year, but I felt like there were games where Georgia's rush department, rushing attack, or pass rush felt undeniable. Felt like quarterbacks couldn't breathe. Texas, every time they played them, felt like quarterbacks could not breathe. Kentucky, Brock Vandergrift could not breathe that entire football game. And then there were some games where you look at it, it's like, wait a minute, Mississippi State, we can't get home. Certain football games, it just felt like you could not get after the quarterback at the rate that you did in other games. Number 2, and something you kind of hit on, that was NAD offense this year. What does NAD stand for around this network? Not a dude. Not a one. Not a dude on that offense that you felt like at any portion of the football game could take over and just be a guy. Y'all didn't have one of those this year, and it constantly popped up. But the number one thing I felt like I showed up on tape, and I felt like we did a good job of pointing out all year, there was consistently a new problem every single week. There was consistently something they weren't doing well every single week that was anew. One week, you're good on the offensive line and you're healthy. The next week, you can't do jack diddly up there up front. One week, your offensive or your running backs are getting loose. You can't do it the next week. One week, you show up, you look awful in the passing department on the defensive side of the football, busted assignments. Next week, you make Texas look like a bad football team on the offensive side of the football. It was a brand new problem every single week on tape, I felt like.
I feel like that was what made it so frustrating, was because you could do everything.
Yeah.
There wasn't an aspect of the game this year where you were like, Georgia really, really was not good at this at all year. It was just, if Georgia's going to be good at this, they're going to be bad at this, and they're going to suffer because of it. And that's the more frustrating part, because I think it's you watch that team and you go, they could have been very, very good. They were very good. They could have been great. They had the ability to do that. The problem was that if they were good at one thing, they were bad at the other. And they were not a consistent football team at all. And like we said, we've said it enough times on the show, consistently inconsistent. And that's more frustrating than anything. I think it would have been better if you were like, you know what? Georgia just can't run the ball this year.
So the question in the chat is, question Brooks, is that a coaching problem or a player problem? And as a player, I know where I resided on this, and I'm venturing more into the coaching aspect of my life in that path. But as a player, I always felt it was 50-50. I feel like it's half of the coach's job to put me in the right spot. It's my job to go out and execute, okay? And in some of these portions of the season this year, I do feel like there were some shortcomings in that execution, right? That were on the coach's end. I do feel like there were some shortcomings certainly on the players' ends of things. So I've always fell on the 50-50 side of that. Maybe as a coach, when I get into this, I feel like it's more lean towards the players got to do what the players got to do. What you hunting over there for?
Georgia basketball just beat number 6 Kentucky.
Hell yeah. Apparently Blue Cane went off.
Hey. Well, there's 30 seconds left in the game, but they're up 14, so.
Shout out to the Hoop Dogs. I'll tell you a little story about that after the show. Top 5 areas to improve?
I've got one more thing.
Yeah. You told me this. You teased it.
Yeah, and it's one of.
Are you going leadership?
Kinda.
I think I would go there. Or you go where you're going, and then I'm gonna address some leadership.
It's kind of a leadership thing. There weren't enough just quote unquote dogs on this team this year.
Yeah.
Not necessarily they didn't have to be a leader, but absolute killer mentalities. Like, you look back at the teams in 2021, there were the N'Kobe Deans, the Lewis Scenes, the Nolan Smiths. Like, you felt like everywhere in that defensive unit, there were just dogs. Last year, Javon Bullard, Kamari Lassiter, guys like that. You had some this year. Jalen Walker was absolutely one of these guys. But after that, like, the next kind of dog on the defensive roster I would say is freshman KJ Bolden. Like, there are a bunch of really, really good football players on here, but there just weren't enough killers on it. And that's not necessarily a problem. That's not necessarily something that I would think is, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, it doesn't make you any less of a player. I don't think Malachi Starks is any less of a player for not having a Javon Bullard-like attitude. But it was something that you kind of noticed throughout the year and you kind of missed.
I was around a lot of those players for a long time. And just being around them, Malachi Starks, if you had to put him into a category of introvert, extrovert, you would go introvert. Michael Williams, if you had to put him into a category, you would go introvert. Jalen Walker, if you had to go a category, where would you put Jalen Walker?
Introvert.
I would go introvert. Carson Beck, we know is an introvert. So I just don't know if they had, I don't know if they had a bunch of CJ Allen, introvert. I don't know if they had a bunch of outspoken, Damon Wilson, quiet guy. I don't know if they had a bunch of these walking around with the chest out like KJ Bolden.
And it's not even that you have to do that.
No, you don't.
But you
got to have a good bounce.
I think the perfect example of this was N'Kobe Dean. N'Kobe Dean was a relatively soft-spoken person. Now, I wouldn't call him extroverted.
Until he was between them lines.
But when you got on the lines, he would chew your ass out. And we saw that in the national championship. And stuff like that, I think, was missing from this year's defense. Now, there is a video of Jalen Walker going up to Julian Humphrey. It happened this year, but I don't think it happened consistently enough, the big word consistency. And it didn't happen enough amongst different players.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like it was like a lot like, hey, Jalen Walker's yelling at this guy, or Jalen Walker.
Tate's getting on to the team. It's like, we need more than just the two of them.
Exactly. And I think that's what was missing from this year's team in particular. And that's not necessarily something that you recruit. That's not necessarily something that it's just one of those things that happens and it has to culminate perfectly. And it's what made those 21 and 22 teams so great.
I want to see more smiles in 2025, not deep exhales of relief. That's what I want to see. I saw a lot of football players leaving sidelines after the end of the game going, instead of going, you know?
Now, I mean, that was likely because they
played a lot of close football games.
Like, you walk off.
They were squeezing cheeks for 4.
You beat Kentucky by 1 point 2 weeks before you got to go to Tuscaloosa. You're probably not going to be like, let's go, boys.
Probably not going to be sky high with the optimism after that one. You're right. There were some moments where it's like, yeah, you shouldn't be on, cloud 9 thinking you're hot shit.
But there were some good moments from the season.
Oh, you going moments or areas to improve? You want to go moments first?
Go ahead and go moments.
We got moments last.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right.
Remember the show notes.
That's on me, man. I'm
trying to pre-show meetings.
I'm trying to get a natural flow of the things.
I feel you, but we got pre-active thoughts.
Correct.
On these shows.
I completely forgot we talked about that.
Yeah. Top 5 areas to improve on this football team. You want to go first or second? I'll go first.
Second.
Number 1 or number 5? Which one you want? I want number 5. Special teams difference-making plays.
I have that as one.
Okay. Apart from Anthony Evans flipping the field one time against Tennessee Tech, you didn't have a special teams play all year. And 2021 and 22 were great football teams. They did great stuff. But they also blocked a punt every once in a while. They also flipped field quite often and won games in margins and dominated games in margins on special teams. And, by the way, gave up a kickoff return for the first time since, I think, 2018. just no difference-making plays on the special teams end of things. In fact, I think you lost special teams quite a bit this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could look at the punt. Like, Brett Thorson basically went his whole career without having a return, and he had a bunch of returns this year.
Number 4, explosive run games got to get better. I mean, 2 years in a row now, you just don't do it. I think this year the 2 longest runs from running backs were, and I know it was a 45-yarder for Trevor Etienne against Texas and a 40-yarder from Nate Frazier against Clemson. Way out on the spectrum. And game 1, game 14.
And a 50-yard end around from Anthony Epps.
So, and there was another end around that went for an explosive to, I think, Dylan Bell against Alabama.
Maybe.
Or against Auburn.
There was an Aaron Smith the Anthony
Aaron Smith against Auburn. That's it. Yeah, well, either way. But yeah, end arounds can't be the answer for we need a 50-yard explosive to flip the field. They've got to get better in the explosive rundown department. We've talked about down-to-down excellence. Not the Georgia standard this year. You've got to get back to that from a fundamental department standard, number 3. Number 2, the offensive line was up and down this year in terms of injury, but even when they were healthy, I felt like they were just okay. When Georgia offensive lines have been healthy since 2017, they've been dominant. Okay, so I need that to return from all around. Everybody included. That's Stacey Searles down to Drew Bobo. Okay, and number 1, and you've made the moves to do this, you got to get better at wide receiver. You've got to play better at tight end as well. And are we the only network out here talking about how the tight ends did not play to the standard that they were supposed to this year? Because I feel like they get so many passes, and it's because Brock's not there. And we watched Brock be the greatest of all time. They still weren't good enough this year at tight end, in my opinion.
I also think I gave him a pass just because of proxy. Like, you look at what was happening in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, it's hard to shit on. It's hard to look at this and go, man, that smells bad, when you've got one of the worst smelling things ever over here.
Yeah. So, like, definitely tight end room did not live up to standards. Definitely was disappointing, even with the fact that you knew it wasn't going to live up to the Brock Bowers legacy. But it wasn't as bad as the wide receiver room, and that's why I kind of gave it a pass. But no, it wasn't acceptable. Was that all your 5?
That's all my 5.
So first one I went with is just catching and separation in general. You have to be able to create space. You have to be able to catch the balls once you create space. It felt like they didn't have one or the other this year. Like, they had some separation, weren't able to catch them, couldn't catch or couldn't create separation. So, I mean, it was just a very, very poor showing on both sides. Like, and it has to improve if you want to be an elite offense in this league. Next one I have is pass pro for the offensive line. It felt like much too often Carson Beck was kind of uncomfortable in the pocket or trying to maneuver things when that's not necessarily his game. He's not a statue. He's more than capable of running around and making things happen. But I think he's better when he's playing on time. You need quarterbacks to play on time. Not necessarily Gunnar Stockton is probably a little bit better at improvising, but I think pass pro greatly has to improve this year. I put linebacker zone coverage as one.
Oh, my God. Just enter that one in over the last 5 years, I feel like, except for Quay Walker.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think they've ever been like excelled at, and it's honestly,
no, they haven't. They've never excelled.
And being a linebacker and playing zone coverage is hard to excel at. But I felt like there were a lot of times this year where it was like, why are you dropping there? Or you don't feel that guy coming behind you and you're moving. It felt a lot like guys were just kind of backing up, waiting for things to happen. So maybe become a little more self-aware at the linebacker position and when it comes to zone coverage. Fourth one I have is down-to-down consistency. Again, we've talked about that ad nauseum. Just be more consistent. Don't screw up every time. Don't have this one where it's like, hey, we had 3 really good plays. Here's a really, really bad play. Like, just be a consistent football team. And then the 5, I have special teams difference makers. You need blocked punts. You need blocked field goals. You need big returns. Not because it's going to change the dynamic of a game necessarily. It can flip the field. It can be really big for you. It's a momentum builder. When you bust off a 40-yard punt return and then your offense comes on the field, there's some juice flowing. When you hold a team to 3 points and then you block the field goal, that's massive. Stuff like that changes the flow of the game. Not necessarily puts points on the board, but changes the flow of the game. You didn't have that enough this year.
I left this one out because I thought you might hit it, but the starts to football games offensively have to be better.
Yeah.
Have to be better. All right, Kirby, top 5 moments of the 2024 Georgia football season. See, this is that time, JS Webb music, where we need some underlying, some like Rocky spinoff. Or something sentimental right here.
I do like sentimental.
Yeah.
So I went 3 OLIs first off.
What?
Yeah. Just taking a page out of your book.
A page? Page. No, boy.
Had a little stutter.
Yeah, it'd be like that.
Speech impediment.
Yeah, way to point it out. What a teammate I am. Go ahead, man.
We talk as much as we do. Like, stuff is going to go down.
Yeah.
So, first off, I have the fake punt against Texas. I think that was one of the more, like, Kirby Smart's still that guy type moments. And I think that you've had one of these every season for the last few seasons you've had. Obviously, the timeout against Ohio State, sticking with Stetson Bennett all through 2021. Stuff like that where you go, man, I'm so glad Kirby Smart's our coach. That's a massive moment for Georgia fans, and it was one of the better ones that led to a win. This is also coming from the same game. The Gunnar Stockton drive against Texas. You felt the buzz and the atmosphere increase in that. Do
you remember where you were during the Gunnar Stockton drive of 2024? Because I do.
I remember exactly where I was, and I had people texting me like, Georgia just found their quarterback. And I was like, it's one drive, guys.
No, J. Will went the other way. I rode home with J. Will for the SEC championship game, and he was like, you know what? If Gunnar is just, and we didn't know what he's going to be. We know what he's going to be now, or at least we feel like we do. I remember J. Will saying, if he's just nothing, if nothing ever happens again, we will always have that one Gunnar Stockton drive. We will always have that.
The Gunnar Stockton half, honestly. Like,
oh, my God.
There were people ready to say that he's a Heisman contender after.
The memes, man. He Heisman posed in his first ever football game.
Yeah, I mean.
Live action, too, not after a touchdown like you frauds.
The true to the trophy Heisman pose, not the one that they do in celebration.
Exactly, like you frauds.
Yeah.
That don't deserve it.
My third and final.
Desmond Howard. Look what you started. Just kidding.
My third and final OLI. And this one, I had to put it in there because I think this was probably the biggest pop you got all season. Taking the lead against Alabama. We know how that game turned out, but to crawl back from down 28-0 and then 30-3 and not win that game, but take the lead late in the fourth quarter. Georgia fans were going crazy. Now, obviously, we know what happened after that. Don't want to talk about that. But that was a massive moment for Georgia football. And then to see Carson Beck showing emotion and the entire sideline erupting. If Georgia had won that game, that might have been one of the greatest moments in Georgia football history.
Kalen DeBoer might be fired.
Is
that a hot take or what?
I don't think he's fired, but I think there's a lot more hot talk.
9-5? Or what would he? 8-5?
8-5. Yikes! Yeah,
8-5 year one with Saban's roster would be raising some questions, as if they aren't already raised ill properly. Is that all 5 for you?
No, that was only my OLIs. Got ways to go, man. Hey, don't worry.
Good, man. Squeeze the segment.
Number 5, Nate Frazier's big run against Clemson. This always happens where...
Man, that's how bad it was this year. What a top 5 moment, that one run against Clemson.
Let me explain it. Nate Frazier's freshman appearance against Clemson. There's always been that type of time where Georgia has that running back, that the young one that comes out and has a big moment. It's like, oh my God, he's Nick Chubb, he's Herschel Walker, he reminds me of so-and-so. Nate Frazier had that game in the first game of the season when all the hopes were very high. Let's not forget how big of a moment that was for Georgia. Obviously, you have 15 weeks afterwards where we kind of know what the season did. But that week 1 run where it's like, oh my God, Nate Frazier's a dude. Trevor Etienne didn't play in that game. So that was a big moment for Georgia football, looking at it in that lens. Number 4, Oscar Delp's first touchdown against Tennessee. And I say this because the atmosphere that it created. First time you had fireworks go off after a touchdown, you were down in that game, kind of a big moment to come back and say, oh my gosh, we can win this game where our season isn't over. You're against a top 10 team. That was a very big moment for Georgia football.
You forgot the coolest moment about that moment.
What was it?
The end zone photo that I took. Oh my Lord.
Go ahead and plug that. There you go.
No, I gotta go find it. But I plugged it. I don't want to pull it up. It looks like this.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Number 3, beating Texas in Austin. A lot of people came into that game worried. A lot of people were like, hey, is our season in trouble after losing to Alabama? A lot of people said Texas was unstoppable, number 1 team in the country. Defense is incredible. Your defense was the star of the show that game. I think it was 3 turnovers, maybe 4, a bunch of fumbles, a bunch of really big defensive plays. That was an exciting environment to be in. That was a really cool environment. 2 teams that had never played before as SEC opponents. Really, really big win for Georgia. Number 2, I have beating Texas in overtime in the SEC championship game. obvious reasons, that was a back and forth game. You felt like you were out of it with Carson Beck going down. Gunnar Stockton leads that drive to take you back into it, takes the big hit at the end. Trevor Etienne seals it. Massive, massive win for Georgia. And the number one moment I have for the 2024 season was the overtime victory over Georgia Tech. It's not often that Georgia fans have been able to rip the hearts out of Georgia Tech. It's always been you come in, but by halftime, Georgia Tech fans go, we knew this was going to happen. We don't care. It doesn't bother us.
Bro, you talk about just... I know. It's so petty. I'm just trying to think of a metaphor here. That would be like, you talk about ripping the hearts out of Georgia Tech. That's like walking down the street, seeing the homeless man with a bunch of money in his cup and be like, yo, give me that.
Hey.
Give me that.
But that
I need that. I need that.
But that homeless man loves always talking shit to you whenever something goes wrong. So you know what? Today was the day we say, you know what?
One of them active homeless men.
I got time today, mofo.
Give me that cup.
For real. So, like, Georgia Tech, the Georgia Tech rivalry has consisted of Georgia Tech prodding Georgia fans when something goes wrong. But then by the first half of the game, it's, we don't care. This game isn't important to us. We know Georgia's better than us. We're smarter than you. We're going to be your bosses later, all of that. It felt like Georgia Tech fans were vested in that game. There were Georgia Tech fans chanting SEC with 5 minutes left. For you to come back, go to overtime, win that game in 8 overtimes, and walk out and be able to laugh at your rival, for you haven't really had the opportunity to do that in years where it genuinely hurt them. That's the number one moment for Georgia fans this year. I'm stamping that.
That's just so petty. I got top 5. I got OLIs. I'm going to go OLI, then 1 through 5. How about that? OLI number 1, Gunnar Stockton entering the game and watching the offensive line respond to him, watching the stadium. Man, what a pop in that SEC championship split crowd from those Georgia fans in attendance. That's OLI number 1. OLI number 2, the trash incident out at Texas. Watching my man Ben Woke go full main character syndrome. I mean, the long flowing locks already doing this for him, but he looked like an apostle. He looked like an apostle waiting for...
He looked like the Jesus statue.
Yeah, waiting for the rain dance to work. And here comes all the bottles. And he didn't care. It's just main character energy. Meanwhile, Cody Chafin's just... my man from Fox 5 and Dog Nation just getting obliterated by beer cans. Lost his camera. I mean, camera broke on him. Meanwhile, Ben Woke's like, come on, bring it. Just an awesome moment. And knowing that I was there in the pit of it, watching all the shit happen, wondering... is it ever going to stop? Surely they'll run out of beer. That's OLI number 2. Number 1, winning an SEC title. Not bad for a down year. You know, not bad for a not perfect football team. Number 2, an 8 overtime win. Any 8 overtime game, win, lose, or draw, I would have been like, I was there. That's pretty damn cool. Yeah. Number 3, that Bama game was nuts. Absolutely nuts.
That is number 3.
That is number 3. Number 4, all the road trips were really, really fun.
So that's like a show thing. Yeah.
Like I enjoyed all of the road trips. And I forgot to mention this one about the Bama trip, and it'll kind of tie into number 5 for us. But that Bama road trip was the first big road game that for the first time in this channel's history, like, not to do the thing, we're kind of used to Georgia fans walking up and saying, we appreciate your show, we love your show, we're grateful for that. But going to Tuscaloosa this year with Jonathan and having people walk up to us in Crimson saying how much they enjoy our show was the first one where I was like, all right, this national thing, this attempting to grow outside of our own base might actually be something that's going to be fortuitous for us, might actually be a plan that's going to work. So that was kind of an eye-opening experience to watch Bama fans be like, hey, you're that guy. You're that guy that does the stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's us. Appreciate you for watching. What an awesome moment for this channel. Number 4, talked about the road trips. Number 5 should have been number 1. Number 5 is the growth on this network this season has been insane. Boys and girls, August 7th of this year, exactly 5 months ago, we had 23,130 subscribers. Today, we have 43,400 subscribers on this network. For those of you counting at home, that's more than 20,000 new people who have found this network in the last 5 months. We've more than doubled this season. I don't know. I know why it happened. It was the extra work. All the extra work that we did in terms of film studies put us in front of more and more people. And I don't know why I failed to do this last year, because I should have known. It's what it's what ingratiated us to the Georgia fan base. The idea that we can get up on the film and explain football to you and break it down in a very, very elementary and fundamental, absorbable form for you guys confirmed our knowledge, right? It confirmed this show. When you watch this show, yes, you laugh. When you watch the live show nowadays, you laugh, you have fun, you talk to your friends in the chat. But more importantly, you know what we're saying is believable and attainable and absorbable because you know it's based in football knowledge. You know it is based in certified ball knowledge. And that's why you appreciate it. And that's been the growth model. Put the film in front of them first, bring the live show to them second. We appreciate you guys for being here with us all season long and extremely excited for the off season. I know most people, you leave football and you think that like, oh, the football topics are done. I think what we do in the off season is really what separates us from what we do in season. So I'm extremely excited to even get into that portion and maybe take some Wednesdays off. Maybe spend some time with my wife and my kids.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. You know, be a dad again. Not that I'm not during these 6-7 months, but it's certainly a grind. And I appreciate you for all your work this year. I know we give you shit about missing work every once in a while. Jay will as well.
When do I miss it though? That's the funniest thing.
Yeah, I don't
know.
The
only thing, this all started because I didn't get credentialed to go to games.
Oh and
so someone was like, "Hey, where's Kirby?" Like, "Yeah, he's not here." It's like, that man never works. What? Where did that come from?
That guy's a bum.
So now I'm just the residential bum.
Now it's Jay Will.
Jay Will's enjoying Europe on a cruise.
Now while Jay Will enjoys 17 consecutive days off. Anybody ever taken 17 consecutive days off? I haven't. Have you? In your life, have you taken 17 consecutive days off?
Never.
You're right. You're right. Silent man in the background. You basically got to give birth to be given that many days off.
Jay Will's giving birth. Dude.
Jay Will, congratulations. I hope you named him after me. Appreciate you guys for being here. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't know what we got for you, but I know we got a live show coming. Love